Okay. Welcome to the DSO Study Club, Group Dentistry Now. Thanks everybody for being here. We're going to give people a couple of minutes to file in. I see some people coming in now, but if you are here because you've registered for the DSO Study Club webinar series. We have Jeff Tomcsik from Grand Dental Group, and we also have Nicole Craig from Callbox. So thanks to both of you for being here today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So we did a practice session about a week ago, and I learned quite a bit. So this is going to be a great webinar for everybody attending. I think you're going to get a lot out of this. And we also had some great questions submitted by registrants. So we'll make sure we try and answer all those questions at the end of this webinar. This will be recorded. So if you had any colleagues that weren't able to attend live, the link will be available. The recording will be available tomorrow morning on our website, groupdentistrynow.com, in the webinar section. So make sure you share that with people. Just give everybody just another minute, and then we'll get things going here. Oh, and feel free also to submit any questions. I think everybody pretty much knows how to use Zoom, but you can ask any questions in the Q&A as they come up, and we will either answer them right at that time, or if we can't, we'll make sure we get to them at the end of the webinar. And for some reason we don't do that, either Jeff or Nicole will answer them by email after the webinar is over. So I think we look pretty good here. We're 2 minutes in, and then we'll let some other folks file in as we get things going. So again, this is the DSO Study Club, Group Dentistry Now. The title here is Grand Dental Group, How an Emphasis on People and Processes Drive Growth. And we did have a lot of great questions specific to recruitment and retention. The Great Recession was thrown around a couple of times. And then also a lot of great questions around what Callbox offers, specifically using Callbox versus maybe having a call center, or some other questions about that. So Nicole's going to handle all that, and then Jeff will handle everything that Nicole's not going to handle. So again, thank you, Callbox, for sponsoring this podcast. We really appreciate it. Great partner of ours here at Group Dentistry Now. And of course, thanks to Jeff at Grand Dental Group for being a part of this webinar. We will make sure that we stick to an hour time frame. So started at 2 p.m. Eastern, we will finish up pronto, right at 3 p.m. Eastern. And again, if we don't get to all your questions, we'll make sure we follow up with you after this. So last thing, I mentioned this early on, but if you have questions, make sure you just type them in the Q&A section, and we will either answer them live or get back to you after the webinar. And then I think the last thing that I don't have here, but we have 3 polls that we're going to ask, and they're going to be placed throughout the webinar. So make sure you participate, and then we will share the results live with you right after everybody gives us their feedback on the poll. So I think without further ado, I am going to turn this over to Nicole Craig, who is with Callbox, and then she and Jeff Tomcsik are going to take things away.
Thanks again for having us, Bill. Really excited to be able to chat through some of these tough topics with Jeff today. As you mentioned, my name is Nicole Craig. I'm a client success consultant on the healthcare team for Callbox. I've worked on the healthcare side of things for about 6 years now. I started at a practice handling phone calls, and so I'm a great reference into what that looks like on a day-to-day, and can really give some good insight into soft phone handling skills and how to best handle those objections. I moved all the way up to the business side and get to help now a lot more clients, some enterprise, big and small. And Grand Dental Group is one of my favorite clients to get to work with on a day-to-day basis. So without further ado, we'll start talking to Jeff and learning more about him and his background. So that'll lead us into question 1 here. So Jeff, talk to me about your background and really how you got into the dental industry.
Sure. Well, first, again, thank you both, Bill and Nicole, for having me. So I got into the dental industry almost 20 years ago by accident, as many of us who aren't dentists or hygienists tend to do. I was actually working on a fishing boat while I was in college, and I was a mate on a charter boat. So we took, people out fishing. The captain that I worked for was in dental school. And I was actually, well, what happened was I actually went back to school to get my master's in education to become a teacher after having worked a few years in marketing out of New Jersey for a company called Market Source. And I would talk to him during the fishing trips, after the fishing trips, and after a while, he finished dental school and said, "Hey, I'm partnering with a guy locally here to with his practice in Maryland, and I'd love for you to help us with our marketing." So my first summer off from teaching, I helped him with his marketing. The second summer, I helped him with their marketing. And what I realized was there was a lot more that needed to be done in this practice than marketing. You could throw money out at marketing, but if like a practice doesn't look good, or there's just things that need to be tightened up, you might be throwing good money at bad money. So I started kind of doing more management. And then after my second year of teaching, they asked me to join full time, and we created a plan. So that's how I got into dentistry. It was a small office, 4 operatories, doing about just south of 800,000 at the time. And over the years, we grew the practice. I guess by 2010, we still only had 1 location, but it went from 4 operatories to 16. We had it up to about 6.5 million, and then we started adding locations through acquisitions.
Wow, that's a super interesting story. Thanks for walking us through that. And you're right. The marketing and operations the rubber has to meet the road there in order for a practice to really be successful. And we'll dive more into that later. And I'd love to hear more of your sailing stories later on as well. Looking at our second question here, a little bit more specific to Grand Dental Group. Let's see if we'll move forward one.
Yeah, so it's still on question 1 on the.
A little bit of a delay.
Okay.
A little bit.
While
Sorry,
we're
guys.
waiting, Jeff, there's a question here.
Yeah.
Did you, this is from Crystal, not dental related, but did you ever watch the show Below Deck? And my guess is yes.
Yeah, it's a guilty pleasure of my wife and mine. Less drama on a fishing boat.
Also, thank you, Bill, for that assist there. Getting to question 2. Looks like my computer was lagging a bit, but Jeff, what is your current role at Grand Dental Group, and what does that involve on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So yesterday was my 1-year anniversary here. So I'm still a baby when it comes to being with Grand, but I've known these guys for about a dozen years. Really great group. We actually met, that long ago at the American Academy of Dental Group Practices. And then we forged a relationship, and we met every year thereafter, with the exception of 2020, and would have a dinner together and discuss best practices and things like that. I've had folks from Grand come out to my practices in Maryland, and I would come out to theirs to help with, building practices. So currently I'm the CEO, CDO, and right now CFO. But it's, we're a growing business. We're 8 locations. We're north of 20 million. We're a great group of offices. They're beautiful. We have amazing practitioners and a great staff, good morale. Our culture's really good. But when you're this size, sometimes you have to wear many hats. And I'm wearing a lot of the hats right now, but I have a great team that helps me do everything that we accomplish.
You took the words right out of my mouth. You are a busy guy. You've got a lot of stuff going on there. Well, thank you for telling us more about your role at Grand Dental. And you're absolutely right. You have a phenomenal team of people there working with you. And here, Bill, I'll toss it up to you for our first poll. But has your practice experienced higher than normal staff turnover in 2022?
So I am going to launch the poll, and you should see it pop up on your screen now. If you wouldn't mind responding as we start to get responses here. Any predictions on this? Are we going to have, I'm not going to jinx anything. Okay, that's all right. So it's not 100% the way I thought it would go, but we are All right, let me wait for a couple more people. All right, last chance to do the poll. Anybody else? There we go. Got a couple more people. It's kind of cool to watch everybody do this on my end. You can't see it though, but we're here are going to be the results. So, all right, last chance. Yep, one more. Okay, sounds good. All right, so what do we predict as far as percentages that would say yes? Do we have any idea? Jeff, you want to?
Well, I'll
Take it.
guess 65.
Okay, Nicole.
The anticipation is killing me, but I'm going to say 70-30 yes, no.
Okay, I think Nicole won this one. So
All right.
here's the results. Can you see them?
Yeah.
77-23. Wow.
Good job, Nicole.
Thank you.
You're always showing me up, Nicole.
Industry expert. What can I say?
So yeah, so 77% said yes, there is staffing turnover issues higher than normal in 2022. So great. All right, we've got two more of these, but thanks for participating. This is great.
Yeah, we really appreciate your insight, and we know that we're joking around, but it's a really tough thing to combat. So we'll kind of talk with Jeff here about how they're working on that specifically at Grand Dental and different things in callbacks that can help make that process a little bit smoother. It's hard to overcome staff turnover. It's hard to get people to stick around, but we can do a lot in the realm of training everyone to get to a good point and then helping to put those most important opportunities in front of you if you're running on a bit of a skeleton crew in the meantime. So that leads us right into our next question here is one challenge that almost every dental practice currently battles is staff turnover. We just saw in the numbers, 77% of these practices have seen that higher than normal in 2022. So Jeff, can you talk about how that's impacted Grand Dental Group and some of the issues with consistency that you were experiencing?
Sure. So most of our turnover happened through 2020, 2021. Just in 2021, we had nearly 30% staff turnover. A lot of people got out of the industry. A lot of people made physical, geographical moves, and some people jumped for various other reasons. We're all have suffered through it. I feel like, and I want to knock on wood, we're in a place right now where we're not having massive staff turnover. We did look into why our staff was turning over, doing the exit interviews and such like that. You know, some are straight for money, but we also interviewed our folks that stuck around and said, what keeps you here? And we did this specifically with our hygiene team. And one of the main reasons that was told to us for why they stuck around was because Grand cares. We care about them. We understand their family. They have families and potentially family issues and concerns, and we're flexible with them. And I think part of being a good business is being a good listener and knowing what your team needs and wants and offering it to them. And some of that's in the form of benefits, and some of that's in the form of being compassionate. But as far as what happens when you have turnover, the latter part of your question, when turnover is slow, I think practices have a slow erosion process that happens where when Sally turns over her position to Mary, Sally tries to give Mary all the information. This is what you need to do. This is why you need to do it. This is how you do it. Mary maybe obtains 80, 90% of that, right? And translates it in whatever way. And then Mary makes her own decision as to what is important. What are the most important parts of my position? And that slight erosion happens. When COVID hit, that erosion was massively escalated because we were all struggling just to fill holes. There's no training process. It's literally, we need warm bodies. We were joking around, we'd hire someone if they can fog a mirror. That's where you are sometimes. So you do need to take a step back and you need to look at, okay, we've had a massive turnover in X department. What do we need to make sure we're accomplishing? And this is actually why I contacted you and how we met.
Yeah, absolutely. And you led me right to my next point is, can you talk about some of those strategies that you use to overcome the impacts of staff turnover and really what you've seen as most effective with those strategies?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is accountability, right? We need to make sure we're holding everyone accountable for what our expectations of them are. So we have to be clear with our expectations. We have to give them the tools and resources in order for them to accomplish the expectation. And we need to work with the individuals to make sure that they not only have learned what's expected of them, but they've demonstrated it and continue to demonstrate it. And the way we know that they continue to demonstrate is to monitor them and make sure we're giving either the accolades or the recommendations for improvements.
Absolutely. One of our favorite phrases here at Callbox is what gets measured is what gets managed. So if you're filling holes left and right and you're really trying to get people in and teach them everything they need to know, it's hard to then see that translate to patients over the phone. And if they're really utilizing those skills and those resources that you've poured into them. And one of the best ways that we know how to do that with Callbox is right here. So this is our staff performance report. And for Jeff, this is very familiar. We've looked at it quite a bit across the practices, but a good way to know if the staff is taking those skills and applying them consistently and working towards improvement is to look right here at your staff performance report. So this is a report that both a manager and an individual business associate or front desk receptionist can see. So I know exactly where I am. If I see here that I'm struggling with requesting and inviting those appointments and I'm not able to overcome those objections, I'm not really scheduling all those appointment opportunities, I can click through and listen to these phone calls, hear where I'm struggling, put some concrete next steps into place, get that self-feedback, and then keep moving forward. And I can do that one-on-one, just me listening to my own phone calls, or with a management, a team lead, a resource there from Grand Dental to help me propel forward and help me overcome those objections. So this has been a really helpful tool there when we're doing those one-on-ones and working with your team leads as well. Beautiful. Oh, went too fast. I lost it. Sorry, guys. Question 4. Another challenge many dental organizations run into is handling patient scheduling objections. Can you tell me about some of the guidelines that you put in place and the handbook that you've developed on how to best handle difficult patient calls?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that's important to recognize and make sure everyone that handles calls recognizes is that patients are people and we are all patients too. And understanding a little bit about the psychology of the human goes a long way. Um, we have to recognize that we are the experts on the phone call. So we can grab the conversation and lead the conversation. A lot of times we don't recognize that that's an issue. And then the conversation sort of dwindles off into outer space. The patient wants our guidance. We need to always remember that we lead the conversation. We have to show empathy. We have to be a good listener, ask meaningful questions, agree with the patient because we're building that relationship. And when all else fails, also know when to pass a call, like give it to someone else because that can change the outcome. But when you can learn that, that's the building blocks or the foundation of a successful call. Then we do things like the dual alternate close and all those little techniques on, would you prefer Tuesday or Wednesday? 2 options. Tuesday, great. Morning or afternoon? 2 options. Afternoon, wonderful. I have a 2:20 or a 3:40, which is better for you. Move through and understand what the patient's needs are and wants are. It's the most critical thing. And again, with Callbox, we're able to actually pause, go back, listen to ourselves and self-evaluate. And where we see consistently not being as successful as we want to be, there's learning modules that you have that we also have. We have an LMS system that we're developing with you. And we can teach ourselves how to improve. So the Callbox is the tool for our own self-improvement. It's not spying technology as people sometimes worry about or whatever the case may be. We don't listen to any calls that we don't have to listen to. We don't have the time to listen to any calls that we don't have to. So
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail right on the head. I love what you said at the beginning about empathy. I think that's a big one that people can lose sight of, especially when you're on a phone call. It's really easy to forget that the other person on the end of that is in fact a person.
yes.
And so patients just want to be met where they are. You got to show empathy, show that active listening, and then really use those resources and those tools that are available to you. And just a quick refresher here for everyone listening, and then something that we've leveraged really heavily with Grand specifically is Yep. This is the meat and potatoes
Yeah,
of
this
everything.
is good.
So CRISP is what we're using to review and to categorize all of those phone calls to show you where you need to focus your time and efforts. Where are those gaps in process? Where do we need to help our people? What's really happening on the phones? And so we start with C, which is connect. So we want to listen for, did that patient connect with someone at the practice ear to ear to get their question answered and their goal for the call achieved? We take it one step further than answered, because if they leave a voicemail, we have their information, that's great. But if they hang up while they're on hold, or if they reach a voicemail and hang up, we don't have any record of that patient calling, and that's not the best patient experience. So we want to make sure that we're connecting with all those patients, and if not, that we have a solid process in place to follow back up. Request and invite, I kind of gave away earlier looking at the staff performance report. But here we're listening for, did the agent who is handling that phone call request that that patient schedule an appointment and really invite that person into the practice? Jeff mentioned this one earlier, specifically looking at when we're the experts, right? We know what we're doing. We know how to get that patient to that booked appointment, but that's not a natural thing that everyone just picks up right off the bat. It takes some time. It takes some effort. So this one we look at specifically with Grand, and we've seen leaps and bounds of improvement in. Their team has been really receptive to the resources we provided, and they've done a great job here. S is going to be schedule. So we're looking at that true conversion rate. So the number of booked appointments out of the total opportunities available, giving you that firm conversion rate to know if they're converting well, then great. We know they're doing a great job. If not, we'll tell you what their objections are that they're struggling to overcome and how we need to help them. And we do that with pursue. So that's on the outbound side. We want to pursue every patient, every opportunity that didn't lead to a booked appointment, and every patient who wasn't able to connect. So we'll give you that quick and easy list so you know where you need to focus your time and your effort.
And I'll add on to this. When you and I first met and started discussing a possible relationship with Callbox, you brought this up to my attention, and it really hit home, because this is how I think. And I have two mantras that I'm always probably annoying people with, but I always, when someone comes to me with a problem, a question, or even an idea, I always ask them about QTC, quality, time, and cost. If you want this product, or if you want this service, tell me about how it affects quality, time, and cost. They don't have to all align perfectly, but you need to understand from that relationship what's going on. And then, similar to CRISP, I have this thing called Team KO, which was my little acronym for theory. Give me the why first. Then the E in team would be expectation. Give me the what. The A is accountability. The M is manage. And then the K is KPIs. And then we have outcome for what, let's now look at the outcome, which everything in CRISP does the exact same thing. And when I saw CRISP, I was like, this is perfect, because it's in line with how I think.
Absolutely. These are the 4 metrics that we consistently see drive growth at practices. And you might not even really think of it or think that these are the 4 things until you hear it listed out. And exactly that same realization is, yeah, this is what we need. This is what's going to drive the needle and really make sure that we're doing what we need to do from a phone call perspective.
Absolutely.
I'm going to steal your Team KO, though. That's a good one. All right, here's our second poll of the day. So what's the number one scheduling objection your team comes across when booking patients on the phone? Pricing concerns, calendar availability, service availability, insurance accepted, or other?
Okay, so here we go. Let's launch this, and we'll give everybody a couple of minutes to respond here. So here we go. Start to see the responses now.
Bill, I want the opportunity to beat Nicole on this one.
Okay. All right. So we'll give you the. Yeah, do you
All right,
have an idea? We still have some more people to do this. And
You want to go first, Nicole?
No, it's all you. I mean,
let's see, there
I will
is,
if you want me to.
There is a 1 and 2. So there are 2 that are pretty tightly tied together, and then the rest are not so close.
I'm going to guess 1 and 2 are insurance accepted and price concerns, but I'm going to go with insurance accepted as my number 1.
Okay. I think if you had asked me this question before 2020, I would have said price and insurance. I think with the issue that we're having with staffing, especially looking at hygienists, Right now, I'm going to say availability and service availability. First availability for me is calendar. So I'm going to say service availability as my number one.
Okay, well, you're both
We're both wrong.
Wrong.
ish. No, I would say that, all right, I'm going to let you take a look. And then you can decide who won. But any last minute, I see like okay, all right, that's it. Okay, here are the results. So you were definitely right, Nicole, on the availability side of things.
Yeah.
And although the service availability, maybe people didn't understand that one because there really wasn't much in the way of a response there. But yeah, availability was number one. And then insurance was pretty close though. Insurance accepted was number two.
All right.
I'll give that one to Jeff because mine didn't work.
Interestingly enough, price concerns were, really, not anywhere near like availability beat them out pretty substantially. So
yeah,
2 out of 14. Yeah. That's hard though. Availability and insurance accepted are two tough ones. It's one we talked about quite a bit with Grand is if you don't accept the insurance, you don't accept the insurance, but a lot of the different practices offer some phenomenal different resources. So different payment plans, discounts, self-pay rates. And a lot of the times, truthfully, that'll bring down that cost similar to what you would pay with your insurance elsewhere. So the biggest thing there is that you're selling the practice. We might not accept it, but we can always request and invite you in. So that way, you know what your other options are because something led them to place a call to the practice. Maybe it was a really great Google review. Maybe it was a word of mouth. Somebody recommended them because you guys were just so great with their kids and they didn't have any fear over going to the dentist. Whatever that may be, we want to try and capitalize on all those opportunities.
good stuff.
Awesome. All right, Jeff, we'll call that one a tie. How about that?
All right. You're too kind.
There's the tiebreaker will be the last one.
All right.
Okay, perfect. All right. And I'm not sure, do I exit out of these? There we go. All right, perfect. So question number 5. So you've been leveraging Callbox since December of 2021. What were some of the challenges that you were experiencing prior to Callbox that you were looking to solve for?
So again, with the turnover, it's challenging to know if everyone that you've recently brought on is acting as you would like them to act. We have a call center, we have 8 locations. So there's many touch points for people. And there really was no way, especially through 2021 with all the shortages, to manage that number of people in determining, one, where's their baseline? Where are they at currently? 2, where are their deficiencies? What is it that they can do to improve themselves and improve the outcome for the practice? So we needed a tool. I had actually worked with you guys for several years in my other practice, many years, but in a much less sophisticated way. We used your phone numbers for ROI on marketing. But I knew what you guys did from meetings. So, I trusted you guys. I knew your pricing was fair because of the way you charged for the lines compared to some other people within our industry that charge egregious amounts of money for that service. And so I said, let me find out more. And you guys were able to be that extra body. I mean, even maybe equal to more than one body. It's equal to several bodies of a layer of management that can help me determine the baseline, where we're soft or weak, what we can do to improve, and then even the follow through on that.
Yeah, a lot of great points there. With you wearing so many hats like you talked to us about at the very beginning of this, I'm sure that you would love to have eyes in the back of your head or a few more hours in the day, but I don't think that we're anywhere near getting ready to roll any of those things out. So in the meantime, we can at least meet you where you are and provide a lot of data anywhere that you are. You can log in and look at one practice, even if you're on the other side of the state. We can serve up the most important opportunities to follow up with across the practices and really quickly show you where your time and effort is needed. And one of the best things that we've done recently, since you mentioned our older platform there, went ahead there. We do have some new reports that are coming out that we'll look at here in just a minute, but we do have both the marketing side and the operations. And like we talked about at the beginning, the rubber has to meet the road. We got to tell you where those calls are coming from. How successful are those campaigns? Are we really driving the patients that are going to book appointments? Or are we driving patients who aren't suited for the services that we offer? And then on the flip side of that, once we get on the phone with them, are we handling them as we would expect and making sure that they're having that great patient experience and we're capitalizing on the value in those leads?
Yeah, I would add back to my quality time and cost comment earlier. When I look at the results that you guys have provided for us, I can't picture having better quality from having this internalized into my group. There's in no way will it save me time to do it personally or internally. And the cost is extremely reasonable when it comes to the service that's provided and what it's making up for. If I were to do it on my end alone, I would never be able to do it within the price that you guys are able to do it for me for.
Yeah. And that's a big thing that does set us apart from some of our competitors is we do give you a consultant for each and every account. So we don't expect you, we're not just going to set you up and say, all right, best of luck, go interpret all this data we're putting right there in front of you. We have somebody who's there to help both from an operations perspective. So help with call coaching, help tell you where you need to really allocate your time. And then two, what's working from a marketing perspective. What else can we offer? How can we get more granular? What can we do to make your lives easier? So great point. Okay, Jeff, can you talk to me about some of the specific areas of focus that you've had and results that you've seen since implementing Callbox?
So we really like to make sure each of our offices, our team leaders, have a certain level of autonomy attached to the expectation of reaching their goals. And with Callbox, we've given them the availability to work with their local teams at the local office on their results. So whether it be connected calls or whether it be getting to the question to ask for the appointment, and then the close rate on those appointments and those types of metrics. And with doing that, one of the things that we've noticed, and we noticed this from actually the meetings I have with you, Nicole, we can gauge their improvements. We can gauge how many times that they actually log in to Callbox and look at a learning module, or how many times did they log into Callbox and listen to one of their calls so that they can learn from their calls. And it's funny. So what are we, about 6 months, 7 months in, maybe
8 months, I think.
we're
Yeah.
8 months in, and
Yeah.
it's like in the last 2, it's really been it's been soaring. And I think when we came on, you noted that we were doing a pretty good job to start with. Like, we actually had a pretty good team. We were proud of them. We were impressed. But nothing has leveled off yet. We're still doing this, and that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all gas, no brakes. We're still pushing forward. And one of the things I too learned on the business side is you have to trust your team, but you have to verify that they're putting in the effort that they say they are. So we actually just revamped our user engagement pod so that you can see both when they're logging in, when they're listening to calls, what calls are they listening to, see a whole lot of metrics just so that you can very quickly just trust but verify. We've given them this assignment. We can see then to call out too, if there's someone who's logging in and consistently listening to calls, that's a great time then to boost them up, let them know that they're doing a great job, congratulate their effort, and really give that praise when it's due. So lots of great work on that front as well. All right, question number 7. What reports within Callbox are you consistently leveraging to better identify areas of opportunity among your locations and staff?
Personally, my monthly and quarterly calls with you where we go over our dashboards. That's what's important to me because of my time sensitivity. That said, I know you work with Emily a lot. I know you work with Devana a lot. You're working with a lot in a more granular way. You're working with a lot of my people to great success. And I know that they're now leveraging you with our marketing campaigns, and we're about to turn on our outbound call recording, which we initially decided not to do, but now see the importance of that because we're dabbling in it. And so for me, I love the big picture because I need the 10,000 foot view. I need to know, is this going smoothly? Is it still, a positive ROI? Is it a value add to the practice? You answer that question for me every month. And that's what I need to know. But that's because we built this on trust and having good people on my end I can trust, who say, no, this is awesome. It's working well. Let's continue forth.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, especially with an organization that's as big as yours. You're going to have different levels of engagement depending on your bandwidth and your responsibilities. So when we talk, it's a very quick top down. Here's where things are. Here's what's going well. And then you give those orders moving down of where we need to focus, which is great to have a direction. We know where we need to take off and keep going to have that positive trajectory that we have been talking about. So the enterprise reports from a C-suite level is very helpful. Just a quick view of 10,000 feet, where are all of my practices at? How are they doing? Where do I need to focus? Then we get progressively more granular. And when we're working with a location one-on-one, we can dig into their metrics specifically to tell them how they can improve. So that way you'll see that translated then on the enterprise side. And I gave it away a little bit too early earlier, but we do have a new report that's coming out here. We revamped our practice performance report to make sure that we have a holistic view of everything that's happening on the phone calls so that nothing slips through the cracks. So we're putting your most important opportunities right there in front of you. There's no guesswork involved in where you need to allocate your time, who you need to follow up with, what's happening on the phones. It's all right there in front of you. And that's dropping here in August, so in a couple
Nice.
weeks. But this is something that we worked on pretty frequently with Devana. She's on a call with me once a week. I feel bad for her. She hears my voice quite a bit. And then the team leads as well are looking at this one pretty frequently. All right, question number 8. So we recently conducted one-on-one trainings with your team leads. Can you talk about that experience, the importance of empowering your team leads, and where you've seen improvements since those have been conducted?
Yeah, again, I think to kind of reiterate an earlier comment, one of the most important things was for them to understand it's not a spying tool. People get very nervous. It's very big brother in their minds. And from the very beginning, we had to alleviate that concern and show them that this is something that literally is here to help you grow yourself. Even if you're not with Grant Dental in a year from now, you take it with you. Anytime you educate yourself, it goes with you. It doesn't stay with us. So, and I know that we're not always going to be the right fit for everyone all the time, so that's okay. But it's a tool for you to not just measure yourself, but improve yourself. So that was the first thing that had to be made very clear. In terms of the empowerment part, I think the fact that they have basically an open view to everything that we see, there's nothing that Callbox is giving me that they're not allowed to access as well. So it's a very open format. We run our business that way as well. We want you to know everything. Like you need to understand EBITDA. You need to understand profitability. You need to understand new patient numbers, attrition rates. We need all these things at our fingertips. Without them, we can't fully do our job because we won't totally understand our job. So we empower the team leads. Our hope is that they're then empowering their team members and that it comes full circle and they're actually helping each other. They're listening to each other. They're learning from each other as they learn from the modules.
Yeah, and I think that all just speaks to the great culture that you have there at Grand. It starts with the management, right? You're really empowering those team leads. You're letting them know that this is a visibility tool. You're exactly right. We're not here to spy on you. We just want you to know what's happening on the phones. You can't be everywhere at once. Their attention's getting pulled in a lot of different directions. So it's just to help them and make them better. So a lot of good points. All right, poll number 3. Here's our tiebreaker, Jeff. Does your practice have a clear strategy in place for making outgoing calls to patients?
All right, let's get this up here real quick. Bear with me. I just have to stop sharing the second one first. There we go. Okay. Let me see if I can find it. I know it's in here somewhere. Here it is, right here. All right, very good. So again, outgoing call strategy. Does your practice have a clear strategy in place for making outgoing calls to patients? All right, let's go. All right, everybody should be able to see that now. So fire away. Here we go. Got activity. Looks like a race. I feel like I'm watching the horse race right here. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. All right. We need a couple more here. Come on. We need a couple more people here to make sure we've got a clear, defined winner. I might be giving it away. So this is a tough one. Okay, give it another couple of seconds.
I have a hunch.
One last person. No. Okay.
I'm gonna say yes wins by 1.
I think it's going to be no by 2.
Oh. Ooh.
Okay. All right. Is that what we're going to go with?
Yep, that's what I'm going with.
Okay. Well, here we go.
Ah, you did. You were right, Jeff.
Oh. Whew. I think we're still tied though.
I think so.
So yes, 1 by 1. Pretty
That's
impressive.
very interesting. That is, but it's pretty close. I mean,
Yeah.
almost split 50-50 there. My gut always said no. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
I was gonna say, I think people like to think that they do have a clear strategy. I think we all know, if we're being honest with ourselves, that while we have a clear strategy, it's not always implemented properly or expressed successfully.
That's what I was going to say. You took the words right out of my mouth. It's interesting. It's hard. It goes back to that accountability. Is you can have a really good plan in place, but if we're not really capitalizing and putting that strategy into place and making sure that we're checking up and it's being implemented successfully, we're missing out on a lot of patients and a lot of calls.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, Bill, for skipping that forward for me. So question number 9 is, can you talk to me about how you've been utilizing missed opportunity alerts within Callbox to better capitalize on paid advertising?
Yeah, so obviously we're not here, as one example, 24 hours a day. And even when we are here, the person in front of us is always the most important person. We do have a call center to help with this this issue, but even then it's not always successful. So we have calls that are just straight up missed, which we try very hard to keep to a minimum, and I think we do a pretty good job. And we also have calls that reach the wrong person, meaning the person who answered the call wasn't necessarily the best person for the patient on the other end of the line. So as an example, we're running a campaign currently for All on X, which is mostly done through Facebook and through Google ads. And we receive a lot of inquiries from that. And it takes a certain amount of education and the right type of person to talk to somebody about, say, $40,000 treatment plan or what's going on. And that gets back to the empathy part of things. I'm blindly calling this office off of an emotional response I have to an ad. I'm going to want a really highly empathetic listener on the other end of the phone from the get-go. There's a reason I need all my teeth replaced. I haven't been to the dentist in a long time. I'm scared. I'm nervous. It might be a financial concern. It could be any number of things, but we need the person with the right EQ to be on the other end of the line to get to the bottom of that. And that's where we're going to find success. So with the inbound and outbound tracking that we're doing on campaigns like that, we're able to assess both sides of that equation and improve and move on. We also can determine by listening to the call whether it's worth a second shot. Like, do we want to make another call back? We gauge the patient's seriousness and what their intentions are. So it's extremely helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've set up across the board both those sentiment detection alerts, so that way we can notify if there's anyone who maybe was upset, who had that increased tone. And then what you were talking about there with those implant leads, you're exactly right. Not every call gets through to the exact person who can handle that specific instance. So we set up those automated alerts, and here's what they look like for reference. You can go to your phone there or to your email. And did I actually move? And we sent those through so that way, in the instance that one of those really valuable patients didn't lead to a booked opportunity, we're automatically going to send you that alert. So we're going to escalate that to the team lead and to your specialist who's running this program to listen and think about what went right versus what went wrong. Where were they really strong on the phone, and where could I pour into that agent to help them overcome this objection? Or on the flip side of that, is this patient at the point where they're ready to purchase this $40,000 treatment? Are they ready to move forward? Are they at that point in the buying phase, or do we need to keep them on the back burner and in our back pocket until they're ready to move forward? So establishing them as a patient, still giving that outbound call to make sure they have a great experience, so they can become a patient of Grand before they're ready for this next step. So these have been really helpful with that aspect.
Absolutely.
All right, question number 10, we're nearing the end here, is can you talk about the focus you've had on creating a culture of accountability when it comes to phone handling, and what results have you seen from that focus?
Yeah. So in terms of accountability, I think we often say, we have to look at ourselves and hold each other accountable as we hold ourselves accountable. We're all here to do a job or for what results our career demands, right? So I take a really open book approach to this with the employees. We want to show them again behind the curtain. Yes, the employee is important. Yes, the patient is important, but also yes, profitability is important. We can admit that. We have to admit that. Everyone wants to grow and everyone wants a raise, right? The recipe for that success is treat your staff right and set expectations, and they in turn will treat your patients right, and the expectation is met. With that, we will profit, and finally, we share in those profits, right? If you are not a part of that recipe, you're missing the boat. So that's sort of how we focus on it from a broader philosophical perspective, and then it kind of rolls back to what we were talking about earlier with the metrics. Like, don't just, if you and I just went over the metrics and we didn't reach back out to our teams to share the metrics with them or ask that they play an active part in it, they're not going to get there. And when it's time, to say, hey, can I get a raise? Well, what have you brought to the practice beyond what you were bringing to the practice? And we all have to ask ourselves that question. That's everyone included, from providers down. So.
Yeah, it's a tough question to ask, but you're absolutely right. You have to take stock and have the courage then to give yourself that feedback of what have I done? Have I really made steps to move forward and to advance my career? And a lot of things we see across the industry as well, with the shifting over to texting and online form fills, people are trying to move away from the phones, but patients are always going to call the practice. There's always going to be lines out there. They're always going to click through and place that phone call. These are other options that are really, really helpful and impactful for meeting patients where they are. But the phones are always going to be a big source of either pain or a big source of revenue. So we want to make sure that we're giving all of those resources and techniques available then to help you overcome those objections and capitalize on all that value.
Sure.
All right, question number 11 is, what tools and resources do you think are critical when supporting your staff with training and driving them upwards?
Yeah, be fair and consistent, just like a judge. You go into court for a speeding ticket. If we're both going 70 miles an hour and a 50, they can't give me a ticket and not give you a ticket. It's just, it's not even, being fair is more important than being nice. Being consistent is more important than being nice. Now, of course, I believe in being nice too, but by being fair and consistent, you build trust. Look, people are simple beings, right? We all want to be respected. We all want to be trusted. We all want autonomy, and we all want purpose. And when we understand that, we're going to go a lot further. Once we do that, then all of a sudden, Callbox is not a spying tool. It's a resource, right? When we do that, our learning, we use Rise as a learning module that we're actually building out and growing right now. And it'll be a resource, not a hindrance or a pain in the butt or whatever else, someone might think. So get your culture there first, and then the tools will make themselves available, right? There's tons of other things that we can do, but I think that's the most important starting point.
Yeah, that's a really important perspective too, to know that you're there to help them. You're there as a resource, and it all starts with the culture. And again, can't say this enough. You guys have a great culture at Grant. Love working with you guys.
Thank you.
All right, our last question today is, what advice do you have for other dental leaders that may know the phones are a problem, but aren't sure where to start in fixing that problem?
Yeah, so look outward. That's what we did. Again, look, we've talked about this. We're having trouble finding people to fill seats on the bus. So when you can't find the people in and around your neighborhood, it's okay to look outward. Outsourcing has become a huge thing. I mean, the COVID thing, we realized that many jobs can be outsourced or be done remotely. Well, this is true too, right? And this is where we came to you. But look outward, look at what your people's needs are, right? And then accept resources. Look, we're all inundated in the dental industry. I feel like we have huge targets on us. Like, people are constantly pounding us to get our money. So when I say accept the resources, I mean, do your due diligence, look into it. I always ask for references. I ask for references of groups similar to me or my size, before I make a big commitment. I don't make 3-year commitments to something I don't know. Like, there's certain amount of, obviously, intelligence you have to bring to the table, but we're in a brave new world. So just look for what your needs are, whether it's, revenue cycle management or AI technology. It's all out there. We've got some amazing new relationships that we're working on right now besides Callbox. Dental Monitoring is helping us with ortho, and it's an incredible company. Denti AI is another one who's basically replaced Florida Probe with an AI technology for our hygienists that is working swimmingly. And if you don't pay attention to what's out there, you're going to miss the boat, or you're going to be doing things in a much more less efficient way, ineffective way, or expensive way.
It was great advice. Thank you, Jeff. All right, Bill, I will toss it over to you for some questions from the crowd.
Well, all right. I think we got, yep. So we are at the Q&A. I am going to stop the screen share for just a split second here, and then we can see everybody's lovely faces a little bit bigger. So like I mentioned before, we had, quite a few questions that came in from registrants. And so I want to kind of run through these. We've got about 9 minutes to get through these, so probably won't get to them all. And then there was one live question. Maybe I'll ask that one first. Do either one of you know about a survey company? This was early on in the webinar. Survey company that would survey, has information on dental turnover and compensation data. Any besides I would think the ADA would have some of that information, but.
Jeff, I'll let you start with that one. I don't know anything off the top of my head, but I can definitely do some research and help find something there if you don't have any recommendations.
Yeah, I don't have any recommendations off the top either. I mean, as far as salary and compensation questions, I know that you can, through Indeed and other resources like that, you can do zip code searches for similar positions and find out what people are paying. I don't know how real time that data is, especially nowadays where things have moved so drastically, especially with hygiene. But yeah, I can do some research too and poke around.
No worries on that one. That's great. That's good. And we'll do research on our end and get back to the person that asked that question. What are some of the biggest obstacles where making key tasks easy to learn and easily repeatable? So this is a mouthful. So biggest obstacles to making key tasks easy to learn and repeatable.
Well, I think the biggest problem, and I think it's an American business culture problem, is we sit down and we meet about a problem, a concern, a need, and we say, gosh, we need to do something about this. And we all agree, yep, we need to do something about that. And then we write it down in our notebooks and we move on. And we all meet again next week and we say, well, what did we do about that? Well, we didn't do anything about it because we didn't assign responsibility and we didn't put a timeline on it. And then we didn't have a follow-up to make sure it was taken care of. We're currently, for project management, working with a company called Attrition, who's helping us manage that. So in a bigger project that we're trying to put together, who's responsible for what portions? When do we want to have their feedback by? When can we say it's been implemented? And how do we follow up and check, like through KPIs or whatnot, that it's actually being done properly? If you don't have something like that set up, a system like that set up, where we are holding ourselves accountable, we're setting timeframes, we're setting the project leader, things just kind of spin around. And then sometimes it's a year later, you come back and say, I thought we decided this last year. Why aren't we doing it? Well, because we're not forcing ourselves or anyone else to own it.
So what was the name of that company, Jeff, that you said that you're partnered with?
It's an Australian company. They work with a lot of the major corporations called Atlassian. They have a free version of their software, but it's just a project management software.
Gotcha. Okay, great. So next question. This is probably, well, I mean, this is for both of you, but Nicole, can Callbox replace a call center?
It's a great question. So we're a phone management solution. We sit on top of your phone system or integrate with your phone system. We give you insight into what's happening on the phones from an operational and marketing perspective, but we won't replace your call center. So we do have a small team who does some projects for Secret Shopper, where we listen to phone calls and secretly grade how they're doing or makes outbound calls, but we wouldn't be able to replace your call center outright, just provide insight into how they're doing and any gaps in processes.
This is another good question here. What tools are practices using to help lower patient attrition rates?
We well, obviously Callbox helps because it's the training to make sure we're doing the right thing. Secondly, one of the most important things is don't ever let anyone leave your office without a next appointment, right? That's important. We use Revenue Well for patient communication in terms of texting, emailing, and whatnot. And you have to know your patient and set them up properly. You know, a 21-year-old patient might only want to communicate through text, whereas an 81-year-old patient may only want a voice communication. You have to understand that it's different strokes for different folks. There are other carrot and stick things I'm not currently doing with Grant Dental, but in 2005, I built a free teeth whitening for life program that I ran with Tidewater for 17 years. And it was, you know, for good patients, a record. What's a good patient record? Pay your bill on time, show up to all your cleanings, get all your necessary dental work done. If you do that every time you come in for a cleaning, you're getting professional strength whitening gel for your custom made trays. So now it's a tool for the phone. Someone calls up to cancel last minute and it's like, oh gosh, Nicole, you know what? I totally understand. Life is busy. We're busy too. You know, you are a free teeth whitening for life patient. Is there any way I can get you to make that appointment today so you don't lose that benefit? It's stuff like that, right? That you can implement to help sway people in the right direction.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Here's an integration. We have a lot of questions around, as you can imagine, staff, right? So this one is, what have you found to be the most effective and engaging way to bring a new team of leaders together in a short period of time? And I'm sure, COVID, you've experienced this, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I feel a little bit redundant here and I apologize, but it's listen, you know, trust, provide direction and autonomy, discuss decisions made and strategize for the future, improve outcomes. When you can do that, your team's going to get behind you. If you're vague and gray about things and you're giving 3 people the same project to work on to see who does it better and you're being sneaky and all that, you're not building a team. I can't remember who I learned this from, but don't ever play bad cop, good cop. I used to play bad cop, good cop all the time. And I thought it was such a great strategy. It's such a dividing strategy. It does not play well because now it's the mom and dad. Who do you go to if you want to get ice cream? Well, I know dad's going to say yes, so I'm only going to go to dad. You have to be united. Your leadership team has to be on the same page and rowing in the same direction.
So we've got several questions we're not going to be able to get to here. I'm going to ask one more, and then what I'll do is I'm going to also do another share screen if anybody wants to reach out directly to Nicole or Jeffrey to ask questions. Hopefully you can all see my screen here, but so callbox.com, if you want to learn more, there's also a resource hub there, which is callbox.com/resources.cfm. Again, we'll have all this in the recording as well, so you'll be able to link through directly to this. There's a solution expert phone number there, and then Nicole's email address, which looks like it's misspelled here. So it should be ncraig@callbox.com, right?
Yep, great catch, Bill.
All right, and of course, Jeff Tomcsik is J, and then his last name, which is a tough one, is Tomcsik @yahoo.com. So last question, let's talk about this. What channel strategies and technologies is Grand Dental Group using? So we talked a little bit about you're using Callbox, right, on the phone. What else
Yep.
are you using?
We use Podium. We use Facebook, Instagram, TikTok for general communication. We use Podium for our ranking on Google, which has been a great partner of ours. I mentioned Revenue Well, Denti AI, Dental Monitoring. Denticon is our software. We use Upshow for internal television communications, Rise for our learning management system. Other technologies that we have in all the offices are the 3 shapes, cone beams. We're heavy on intraoral cameras in every operatory so that we can share information in a way that makes sense to the patients. So that, I mean, that's probably not an exhaustive list, but it's a pretty good
It's
start.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Nicole, any final words before we let everybody go for the day? And again, thanks everybody for attending this DSO study club webinar series. We appreciate it. We know it's your valuable time, and thanks for spending an hour with us. So Nicole, final words.
Well, Bill, you just took the words right out of my mouth. I'm just very appreciative of you guys for giving us a platform and chat with Jeff today. Grand Dental, again, is a great resource and a great example here in the dental industry. So we love the opportunity to work with them and to gain some of your wisdom from asking these questions. I think it's funny that we misspelled the easier of the 2 last names, but we'll definitely reach back out with any questions that we weren't able to get to today. And if you'd like to hear any more information about Callbox, or if you have some problems or challenges at the office that you're looking to solve, we're happy to help with that problem solving strategies and love to get on a call and talk more about it. But thanks so much for the time today.
Thanks everybody. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Jeff, for being here.
Thank you.
Until next time, I'm Bill Newman with Group Dentistry Now. Appreciate it.